What is good, Mexiplanners? One of my main goals for 2022 is to improve my Spanish fluency. I live here, y'all. I live in Merida. I'm not going anywhere for at least the next 10 to 15 years. This will be my home base. So it's very important to me that I have a mastery of the Spanish language in order to be able to fully navigate my new home. In pursuit of a better command of the language, I've been taking intensive Spanish immersion classes at 2 of the 3 most recommended Spanish schools here in Merida, Calle and Habla. Today, I'm going to provide you with a comparison of Calle and Habla so that if you're interested in taking Spanish classes in Merida, you will know which one is best for you. The Spanish immersion classes that I've been taking have been the intensive Spanish immersion programs at Calle and Habla. Both are 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 4 hours a day, so a total of 20 hours Monday through Friday of nothing but Spanish spoken in the schools. But that's pretty much where the similarities of the 2 schools end. Calle is where I spent the majority of my time taking classes over the last 2.5 years. I started with them when I took my first solo trip to Merida back in June of 2019. At that time, I took 3 weeks of back-to-back intensive immersion classes. And honestly, during that time, I really figured out that I didn't know the language. I went into those classes thinking I had a very good handle on the language, and I quickly found out that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. I talk about that experience in the video that I'll leave in the description below. But since January of this year, of 2022, I've taken 3 weeks of classes, 2 in January and 1 in February at Calle. Calle used to be located near Colonial Santiago. They have since moved to a new location which is about 2 blocks away from Parque Santa Lucia. I really like the old facility because of the space in the kitchen and the pool area, but the new facility is very centrally located and very close to Paseo Montejo, as well as Parque Santa Lucia, the Grand Plaza, and many other of the Merida Centro attractions. If you're visiting Merida, the new location is closer to some nicer places to stay. The new, like the original location of Calle, is also in an old colonial with 20-foot ceilings, a center courtyard, kitchen, and a rear lawn patio. The new location offers 4 classrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and it also offers good choices for breakfast, lunch, and fruit to buy. It also has a center courtyard where students can gather and talk during the breaks. Breaks typically last about 20 to 30 minutes and are around 11 o'clock a.m. Pro tip, now if you're going to Calle, the first thing I'll tell you about the break scenario is to order your food first, then use the restrooms during the break. Each meal is made to order, so you want to be in the front of the line. Like many of the colonials in Central, the classrooms at Calle all have high-speed ceiling fans that will definitely move some air. During the times that I attended classes this year at Calle, I think only once did we need to use the fan. There was only one day over 90 degrees out of all of them. The classrooms open up to the courtyard, so you can open all the doors and all the windows. This is great to cool down the classrooms, but it also invites mosquitoes. Every time I've been there, I've definitely made sure to pack my mosquito repellent. So that would be my pro tip number 2. If you're attending Calle, make sure you bring some mosquito repellent with you, particularly if you're going in the summer months where the mosquitoes are going to be more rampant than they are in the winter months. Now, the staff at Calle are simply incredible. I've had the pleasure of working with Miguel in the past, who seems to be the longest tenured professor there. This year in 2022, I've worked exclusively with Saul in group classes. Saul has a very laid back and easy approach that I absolutely enjoy. Now, the students at Calle seem to be mostly international students. I don't know what they do to promote their business internationally, but many of the times when I've attended class at Calle, I'm one of the few people from the United States. Many of the students are from Europe as well as Canada. The global dynamic brings a very interesting perspective to learning because generally we'll talk about, how things are in your country, and that brings a very interesting dynamic to the class when you have a global perspective of how things might be in Germany versus Sweden versus Denmark versus all the different places I've had students attend. In fact, every single time that I've attended classes at Calle, maybe with the exception during the pandemic when I was doing it online, I've had students from around the world. So it's been very, very cool to get that global perspective. Now, the approach of learning at La Calle is very, very methodical. On the very first day, they call each student in for a brief interview to determine the level of the class that they'll be in for that week. Once they've gathered all the people and organized them into different levels and groups, they then proceed to hand out the milestones for the week. One group might be working on the present tense all week, and another group might be covering, say, the simple past. During the week, you'll have many handouts that will introduce you to the ideas and the rules that you're going to be covering for that particular week. You'll work on those handouts and then use that newly learned information in discussions that are reinforced by the professor. That's probably the coolest part, is just going through the material and then actually using that material in discussion. So the last time I was at La Calle, we went through an in-depth discussion on the past tense, but of the irregular verbs. And so the whole time during the discussion, with the other two students that were in the class, we were just hammering on about, how we did X, Y, and Z. So we were definitely utilizing those skills that we learned in the handout. So that's one of the things that I love about La Calle, is the reinforcement of the ideas that you learn in the practice sheets as well as in the discussion. Now, the discussions are the part that I really enjoy because of a couple of reasons. One, it's the opportunity you have to discuss and practice speaking in the newly learned concepts. And two, the professors may issue a prompt question, but normally they let the conversation happen and generally correct grammar, vocabulary, and other things that you need to know as you progress through the conversation. 70% of the learning, in my opinion, at La Calle is done between the conversations and the whiteboard. The other 25% is done on the worksheets that you're given, and 5% of the learning is done in the games that you might play at the end of the day. The last point that I'll make about La Calle is that they offer a cultural activity and excursion each week for an additional fee. I haven't participated in any of the events, mainly because I live here, but they're available. So they offer and they do trips and all sorts of things each week, and they normally come in at the beginning of the week or what have you and find out who's going to be attending that cultural event either on the weekend or whenever it's taking place. For the intensive Spanish immersion program at La Calle, the cost is around 3,550 pesos per week. Now that's roughly 172.50 in US dollars, so keep that in mind. Now, last week, I decided to switch things up a bit and attend Habla. I walked past the school many times on my way to La Calle because it's actually in the north in colonial Mexico, so it's very close to my home. From the very initial contact I had with Habla, there was an emphasis placed on the safety and comfort of each student. Let me explain. They're only accepting fully vaccinated students at this time, and it is required that you send a proof of your vaccination card. Secondly, masks are required in all the classrooms. The same applies to La Calle. Whole time you're having discussions and inside of the class, you must wear your mask, but the minute you're outside of the classroom, inside of the courtyard or the patio space at La Calle, you can take your mask off because it's open air. But they don't require vaccination at this time. La Calle does not. So that's a key point to note. If you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, that's something you should be aware of. There was not a written test or one-on-one interview on the first day, which is a big departure from La Calle to Habla. First impressions of the Habla facility is that it's an actual school. It looks like a building that may have been a home at one point in time, but it's since been redone into a full school-looking facility. There's a front desk reception area. The middle of the building has this beautiful elaborate mural with lots of cultural facts on the wall. The facility has 4 classrooms with a separate ladies and men's room. It also has a large conference room space with multiple tables, a projector. The rear of the facility features a massive outdoor area that has a covered patio as well as a lot of green space with trees, very established trees and lawn. There's also a completely separate building just for the kids' classrooms, and the kids also have a patio to themselves. Now, the kitchen at Habla operates differently than La Calle. La Calle, the kitchen operates on a made-to-order basis. So each student comes up, they order their fruit, their chilaquiles, or whatever it is that they have on the menu. But at Habla, at lunch, the food is prepared and plated and presented to you as you exit out into the courtyard. Every day was something fantastic. The staff and the students at Habla also have lunch together at the same time each day from all the classes. Each morning, there was water, fruit, and coffee and some sort of pastry included in your program fees. So the lunch at Habla is actually included as part of the tuition that you pay per week. And every day it was something delicious. The cook, Carla, made the best Yucatecan food that I've had outside of the tacos at my family's house. Every day the lunch was delicious, and by day 3 I was asking for extras. Carla could absolutely cook, and you know, the food was definitely local, it was definitely Yucatecan, and it was definitely delicious. And that was a part of the cultural experience that you got at Habla. The classrooms at Habla are also equipped differently than La Calle. For starters, each class has air conditioning. Let me say that again. For starters, each class has air conditioning. That can be huge if you're taking classes from April through October here in Merida, because it can get a little warm. Now, the colonial buildings down, like the one that La Calle is in, they're known, you know, to stay cool with the 20-foot ceilings with the fan, but there's nothing like conditioned air. This is also huge because the classes were very comfortable and there were few mosquitoes. That's a very big difference, because the classes are closed, they generally are keeping the mosquitoes out. So keep that in mind. Depending on what time of the year you're planning to take classes, you know, if climatized air is going to be important for you. Secondly, each class has a large flat screen television or projector like they have in the conference room. This is a very key component to Habla, as much of their teaching method involves audio visuals. The Habla method was very different for me personally. The first day started with a group activity in a circle so that each student can get to know each other. Then we went to the assigned classrooms. This was the first time that I've been in a class with 2 other men, and we were all in our 40s. One guy was from France, the other was from Seattle, and of course me, I'm from Atlanta. So this was a very interesting class in that we were all of similar ages, and the guy who was from France actually lived in Texas, and he was there because of his job, and his job, you know, had a lot of Spanish speakers, and he wanted to be able to better communicate with them. So after getting into the class, we were handed worksheets about music and social movements in Latin America. So right away, we started, you know, in the classrooms learning about the culture of Latin America and the music that surrounded the different social movements that went on. And this would be the theme for us all week. So we started on day 1 learning about social movements in, I believe, Chile, or maybe it was Argentina, but it was some students that, you know, were protesting high tuition and things of that nature. And then that progressed to other social movements throughout Latin America as we went on during the week. One of the things that Habla, you know, during the group exercises, they did a very good job of engaging the creative side of your brain and the analytical side of your brains. Now, I didn't particularly care for the exercises, but I totally understood them at the end of the week when it all came together, because they were simply building up, you know, the camaraderie between all the different groups, because everybody was going to present at the end. And that was one of the really cool things I thought happened, was that at the conclusion of the class, we all got together and we kind of presented what we had been learning for that week. So I get it, but you know, at the time when I was going through it, certainly on days 1 through 3, you know, I wanted some continuity between the different things that we were learning and more structure, and didn't fully appreciate it at the time of going through it, but at the end of the class, I totally got it. Now, Habla also offers a cultural experience every Wednesday at the school. So this past Wednesday, they offered a discovery of corn, and they really took it from the actual, you know, vegetable from the stalk all the way to processing it into tortillas. So they got a full 2 to 3 hour experience going through corn and how it's processed into making tortillas. I didn't participate again in that experiment, but all the students at the school said that it was a really cool experience and they were very appreciative of doing that. So Habla also offers a cultural experience, and it's included with your tuition that you pay for the week. So what do I think about Habla? To me, Habla is a more comprehensive educational experience. It includes your food, your cultural activities, as well as a swag bag with a notebook and pen, which was kind of cool. I'll put a picture of those on the screen so you can see. They also take into account the dietary needs of every student. I put on my form that I hate cilantro, and they made sure that I didn't get cilantro all week. In fact, Carla came out, there was a salsa that made with cilantro. She's like, no, that has cilantro, which I greatly appreciate. Habla also provides language learning through music, video, and lessons on the whiteboard, as well as handouts. I would say that Habla is a full sensory experience from the music all the way to the food. My professor Laura was every bit equally as good as those that I've had at La Calle. So what do I think about La Calle? La Calle is a great school for learning Spanish. The professors do a great job at moderating the discussions to make sure that each student has an opportunity to speak at their level, which is very, very important because they are there to help you along. They add new vocabulary words, they talk about sentence structure. So it's a really cool experience. And I think most of the learning at La Calle actually happens through those discussions, learning new vocabulary and the things that happen on the whiteboard. While the meals are not included at La Calle, they're definitely fairly priced and well below 100 pesos for most things. I think I got a big old bowl of fruit almost every single day with granola and yogurt, and it's like 60 pesos. So you can't beat the prices for the food, and it's pretty good. I think one day I also had chilaquiles, and it was delicious as well. La Calle, however, is very focused in keeping you within the framework of whatever the subject matter is that you're learning for the week. For instance, if you're learning present tense, all of your discussions will be in the form of using present tense. And this can feel a little limiting if you're ready to move on to another skill. Once you feel like you have a mastery of that skill, well, you're gonna be doing that all week. So here are my recommendations between the two schools. At La Calle, one of the top considerations of many of the folks that attend that school was the price. Many students suggested to me that they chose La Calle because it is half the cost of some of the other schools. Having attended both, I can truly understand why Habla charges more, and cost of Habla is 6,500 pesos versus 3,550 pesos for the same 20-hour immersion program. I can completely understand why Habla charges more because everything is basically included, from the AC to the audio visuals to the Spanish immersion, as well as all your meals. It's all included. Now, both schools do a great job at teaching the Spanish language. I feel that anyone can learn at both. Depending on your learning style, however, you may feel better about learning at one versus the other. I personally prefer the conversations and the structure of La Calle. I can see where someone who prefers to learn a lot about the culture and the music might actually prefer Habla. Lastly, if you have a family and you want to study with your kids, Habla, to my knowledge, is the only place that you can do that. They have a facility where the kids can learn at their level through arts and crafts and other methods, while the adults attend classes at their level. Now, for my time and money, I'm probably going to continue to go to La Calle to improve my Spanish. I may try one-on-one classes to see how that feels. The value for me is stronger at La Calle because I live here and I can work on a particular thing heavily for a week and then practice it and come back, later to improve on a different skill. Let me know if you're planning on taking classes in Merida, and based on this comparison, which school seems right for you. Leave me comments below. If you want to know more about my Spanish journey, check out this video right here. Until next time, thank you members for making this video possible. Mexitplans Monty, Amu! Nada nos libra, nada más queda, nada más queda.